Tennessee's interesting too because it's got a lot of culture now that's kind of being built through it in Nashville, and even in some of the other local town areas of where the colleges are. Like Knoxville's a good town now that's starting to get a little bit more integrated with colleges and kids, but I think it's mostly white families, that you're going to be meeting down there. So hopefully you get a little bit of culture. I mean, that's where kind of Florida's interesting too. Like Florida's, depending on where you're at, like if you get to like a Miami or Fort Lauderdale where like some of the camps are, that's where you'll still get some diversity to a degree.
Florida is just straight chaos.
It is chaos. And
that's what makes it Florida though.
I think I think at our age, chaos is good. Like I think there's not enough people who will throw themselves into chaos. I actually talked to a lot of friends about trying to involve themselves in at least something small that is chaotic or even a risk. I was actually just talking to my girl about it too, about there's so many things that you could still do or at least be working on a risk, right? Like even if you don't take the road trip you're trying to take, at least you could have a risk that's something you want to do, right? As opposed to you'll never do it because of the risk, right? At least you do it. At least you're involved in it. So
yeah, risk is a good thing, I think. At least you sent that one video to me a few weeks ago about your 20s are just like a waste of time and you should do a whole bunch of things.
Right.
Which actually I was thinking about this the other day and I wanted to get your perspective on it because I know you do a lot of things. And I was thinking in terms of jiu-jitsu and then I was relating it back to like real life. What is your take on being a specialist versus being like, for lack of a better word, a jack of all trades, not just in jiu-jitsu, but in life? Because what I see is we have these people in like the physics world, the jiu-jitsu world. Like what comes to mind is John Danaher. He's a specialist in jiu-jitsu. He revolutionized jiu-jitsu to what it is today.
Right.
But he specialized in it. He didn't dive into these whole bunch of other things versus someone like,
that's a good point.
Someone that just does a lot of things and puts their hands in a whole bunch of buckets.
Right.
I just wanted to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting because I was actually just talking to one of my friends about it who, we do a little bit of business together, and he has talked about that when it comes to meeting people who can be influential to the way you do things and not necessarily needing to have perfected your craft just yet, right? Or perfecting it at all. It's kind of, and the concept of then perfecting your craft is like, have you ever perfected it? And that's a whole other rabbit hole that we can kind of get into. But in your situation, it's interesting, right? Because like a specialist is a way to get yourself into the door you're trying to get into, but it's not always lucrative, right? You can be a specialist. That's where, education is interesting, right? Where like there's professors who have a PhDs in the exact thing that they're doing, that they've studied for, what would you say, 14 years at this point, maybe 14 to 20 years before. And as they've been teaching it to other people as quote unquote experts, and that expertise may not even garner you the type of value that you're looking for from a long-term perspective, but in the same breath, the long-term aspect of that is where you can say that you stuck to something, right? And that's the interesting part about that too, is like sticking to things is good and it shows discipline, which can help you along the way. And then there's the aspect of patience in that, where being patient and understanding that your life takes phases. And if you can at least love the fact that you can be patient. I actually just heard it the other day it was from a rapper who was saying, I think I've been able to garner the success I've been able to have at this age because I'm really patient. And that's a really underrated skill in being a jack of all trades or a specialist. And like, I think specialists take the really patient route, and jack of all trades are like, okay, let me get good at something first. And then once I get good enough to be able to get into another room, then I'm going to do the thing that I really like. And then I'm going to do another thing that I really like to get into this other room. And now I've done the things that I really enjoy at a really good rate as opposed to an excellent rate. So it's interesting. It's like, I personally like being a jack of all trades. I do think that if I had 5 things that I was very, very good at, I would need one of them to be exceptional. Whether it's, let's say right now I'm agent, manager, performance, trainer, and relationship builder. Which one of those do you think I need to be the best at?
Is that an actual question?
That's a question. Yeah, that's a question.
It's a tough answer.
It is a tough answer. It's not simple, right? It's like, I think what gets you to becoming all of those other things is the relationship builder, right? Because you could be a good trainer and nobody goes to you because nobody knows it, right? You could be a good agent and you could manage people well if they know you, right? So, and if you've built the relationships well with those people to trust you. And so in some ways, I believe the relationship building is going to get you what you want as opposed to just being good at your jobs. Like, there's a lot of people out here in the world who are excellent at their jobs. Like, there's excellent construction workers, right? But they may not own the construction company. And there's excellent guys who came in here. I was even just saying it to Trent and, and people who were in part of the business and people who've been here, is like, there are, when I remember the people, when we were building out the office, there was a couple guys who came in here that my brother knew who built the chairs, and they built it in like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And they were just lightning fast, really good at it. And I was like, it's unbelievable to watch people who are good at their jobs. People who are great at it, a baker, a guy who works at Wawa. Like, just because they're there doesn't mean they're not special in what they're doing. It's just they're at a place that maybe you're not in, and it's just their walk of life. So I would say the relationship aspect is more important out of those five.
Yeah, so, that I think, I don't know if I said it in the last podcast we did, but one of the most I don't know, I guess you would call it inspiring things when I look at what you do and how you operate is the amount of people that you just know. If I ask you for like anything, I can go out on a whim, text you, do you know a guy for this? You're like, yeah, I got a guy for that. And it's just,
no, it's the truth.
Crazy.
It's absolutely the truth. And like, and a lot of that has to do with just being able to ask questions about stuff that you don't necessarily know. And so being able to do that is just as important as, being able to also deliver on certain things. And like, delivering is important when it comes to being good and being useful, because you don't reach out to people who can't do something for you. You only reach out to people who can and who are capable of something that is going to get you into that room or to something that you're trying to accomplish. And like, I think that more people need to understand that you're not here to not do stuff for others. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what you're trying to do. I just had the conversation about 2 hours ago in a different meeting, and I was with one of my mentors, and we actually met people that we didn't expect to meet, and with the guys who's worth, upwards of, 8 to 9 figures, I'll say. And he had said, don't be a jerk, do the things that's good for people. And I was like, yeah, the biggest thing is that you're not on top for that long. And then he had said, which we get into the rabbit hole of, he's like, well, I don't know if you're ever really on top. You're just like, but the process going up, he's like, going up is the best part. And so, but being on top is like a momentary thing. So, but while you're going up, you help other people go up. And it's not easy if you're being selfish. It's not easy if you also can't deliver on what you're trying to do.
That's interesting. Going up is the most eventful, because I was just talking to my brother about it. In the jiu-jitsu, I hate to bring everything back to the jiu-jitsu and MMA world.
But it's what you do.
It is. It's what I live and I do. I told my brother right when he started jiu-jitsu as a white belt. I told him, I'm like, if you start chasing belts, you're gonna quit. Or you're never gonna last.
You are gonna quit. You're not gonna do it well. You're not gonna care about it the way you want. And that in itself is everything. You have to be doing things for the right reasons. If you're not doing it for the right reasons, and that's where like sports and entertainment and being elite at something is the difference between people just being good. There's a lot of people who are good at stuff.
Very
like,
good.
There's people who just walk into your gym right now who never did jiu-jitsu and are sufficient. They're like, this is good. You know how to roll. You know how to really take the leg out. You know how to, do a single leg dive and do things in a way that's like, okay, that's pretty sufficient. Like, you've been an athlete before. And then Then there's the guys who are becoming experts at it, and like just it's the fine detail.
Right.
It's the small things that get you to be the different person, and it's being particular about it. And what's interesting about that too is there's a lot of people I know who are the experts actually are kind of jerks, which is funny.
Yeah.
But it's because they're so particular about how things get done and what it's supposed to look like. And do you see that in jiu-jitsu a little bit?
I chuckled. I don't know if the mic got it when you said it, because I chuckled because one person immediately came to mind. I'm not going to say the person because I respect them and they're a great person. It's just they have this sort of attitude because they're a world champion jiu-jitsu player, and you can kind of feel their presence being shown in a room of like, do it this way and be the best at it, or get the, I don't know if we're cursing on this podcast.
Do whatever you want on this
or
thing.
Get the fuck out attitude. And some people are going to run away from that, and some people are going to gravitate towards it. But yeah, I've absolutely seen that attitude on display, which it's going to work for some people. It works for me because I be the best at something if you're going to do it.
You've also been in environments where you were able to absorb that type of behavior and that coaching style, which coaching styles, and then how people get approached by adversity are where that kind of marries together a little bit, because there's people who shut down quickly when somebody is trying to help them be good. That's like the first thing that people really don't really realize is like, I'm telling you this because I actually want you to be good. Some people don't know how to convey that information well enough, but yelling doesn't mean I'm not trying to get it to you in the right way. It just, this is my way of doing it. And if you can kind of compartmentalize that, then you're going to be very good at stuff. Like you'll just be, that's because you're just going to get into those walks of life. People are just going to be rude to you in times. And like, people are not going to be able to tell you the way, things that you want to hear the way you want to hear them all the time, but you got to hear it.
Yeah, you have to. And that's, I was thinking about it as you were saying it. That's the only coaching style I've ever known. All of my coaches throughout high school and college were that type of coaching where it's like, I'm trying to get you better and I want you to be better.
Right.
But they're going to convey it in a way that sounds like they're kind of being a dick about it, which they're not trying to be. They're just trying to make you better.
Only if you're actually getting something constructive out of it, though. I don't like the coaches who think that they're going to explain to you or give you the disclaimer that they don't want to be a dick, but it's like, what if I don't have a problem with that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, what if that's okay? What if it's just tell me what's wrong, as opposed to you trying to give me the small disclaimer like, hey, I'm not trying to be mean to you. It's like, I'm trying to get better here. So like, you can say what you need to say.
Yeah.
And so that to me sometimes bothers me because then it's not organic, right? It's like, and it's not about necessarily trying to hurt my feelings. I'll decide if you hurt my feelings, right? As a kid, like,
they'll probably let you know too if you hurt their feelings.
They'll 100%
They'll
let you know.
or
you can tell. Body language is 70% of communication. So if I could see it, I'll know. Like, but the kids want people, and kids and people just want you to say what you need to say, and then they'll determine themselves, or you'll determine, hey, maybe I said something, and then the reaction you get is at least a truthful one, and then you can decide, like, hey, I wasn't trying to be mean to you. I was just saying, like, this is what I feel.
It's kind of a lost art nowadays is authenticity. We're kind of losing that.
No, we are. You're losing authenticity in areas that you need it. And that's the thing. It's like, because, and this goes into a different rabbit hole, but we might get smoked for saying this, but I will say it.
It's all right.
I do believe that lying is important.
I think there's an area for it.
I think like 15% of the time.
Yeah. I think situations mean everything.
It's going to be circumstantial.
Like, it's always going to depend.
Lying is circumstantial, and it's not always, and it's not often, and it's not it's important, but it's always good to want to be truthful, and that your intentions of being truthful will sometimes even make you lie, which is sometimes a good thing. I'm telling you, what you don't know doesn't hurt you some days, especially in love, especially in marriage, friendships, relationships, and how people work. Because sometimes, I say this all the time to my friends, like, especially the women that I've been with in my life, like, don't disturb my peace. Like, I'm doing a lot of different things right now. I'm moving around. I'm shaking. I'm working 60 hours. I'm in the car. I'm trying to make plays happen. I'm really happy about what I get to do. Hey, you can't drop a bomb on me when it's time to drop a bomb on me, man. Like, that's not good. That's not good. And you don't want that stuff to happen because, like, once it does, you're like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, look what was going on. Just one more thing. I was fine.
Yeah.
And I was fine. You could have actually lied to me. And that's where people want the truth so bad, and then they don't get it. Or they get it, and then they're like, man, like, I'm done here. It just ruined the next, like, year of my life. And it's like, well, did I need that?
It's almost a double-edged sword. Because you do want the truth. You want the truth, but at the same time, it could probably hurt more than not knowing what the truth was.
And that's the part that sometimes we lose sight of, and we think we know what we want until you get it, and then you're like, wait, I actually don't want that at all.
Yeah.
I actually hate that. Like,
let's go back.
And so, yeah, no, I'm not interested in some of that stuff, and that's where you can lose your mind over things that are
absolutely. Yeah, we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and
which I love.
I forgot where we came from, but we're still moving forward.
Yeah, no, we haven't even introed the podcast yet, which is good.
We should probably tell. Is that our name? Are we official on our name?
I like the name. Do you like the name?
I
you
like
official
the name.
On that. We can make some merchandise. We can sell that name. Start putting it on things. Make an Instagram for it.
I like it.
Okay,
I like the name.
I like it.
I guess we'll announce it then. A puncher's chance is what we're going with.
I like that. I like a puncher's chance between Ty and Quinn. Yeah. I like it a lot.
It wraps up kind of both of us. Like you were talking about it earlier. I don't know if you had the mic on or not, or the podcast rolling. You were talking about it at the start, but it kind of just wraps up both of our lives in a nutshell, in a name as best as we can make it.
And as current as it's been too, you know, as current and as focused and all the kind of things that it embodies for us to be doing what we're doing. And you're in it, man. You're in it the way you want it to be. I know you've been striving to be in these types of scenarios, and it takes time. Time is, everything, and you've been able to build up more about how you look at life, and it's early. It's early, man. You're in the early stages of, like, true development. Like, you got to get your heart broken soon. It's bound to happen.
It's going to probably happen.
You got to get your heart broken soon. You got to get strong. You got to go take the road trip, hang out with friends, learn life, see the highs, go through the lows. You got to go, and this is the stuff that, like, I'm grateful that we were able to go through at the times I was able to go through it, like at your age, where it was like, you don't know what's what. Your next every single day to you is a mystery.
I'm so lost, it's unbelievable.
But you're like lost.
I put on a shell to make it look like I'm not lost.
Right.
But every day I'm at home and I beat myself up trying to figure out life at 20 years old, and in the back of my head I know I'm not going to figure it out. But
and you're not even supposed to.
You're beat myself
fine. Up. And that's what's so funny about, like, that age of being 20. I'm still beating myself up now about what I want to do, and I'm in a lot of the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm currently in the things that I want to do. Like, if I had it my way, I'm doing exactly what I want. And I'm still beating myself up about it. And that's the part you're always going to do. And you just want to beat yourself up less, right? You just want to do it a little bit less because you're constantly going to question a lot of things you do. Even successful people just question the things that they do because they're still among the people, and they're still among if you're in any people-driven industries, you're always a little anxious about the perception.
Yeah.
And that anxiety comes from being able to please the people and make sure you give people what they want and give them the worth, the value of what you're looking to get and what they're looking to get.
Yeah.
And so you end up always in this mental quandary of, like, am I doing it right? Is this supposed to be what I'm supposed to be at? Am I going the places I'm supposed to go? Are the people helping me supposed to be helping me? Like, and then you just start diving into different, subgenres of your brain that, like, sometimes you just can't control.
You just got no control over it. And I lose my mind so often. It's become a normal thing. And, hopefully one day it simmers down.
Right,
but,
right.
We keep going and we keep moving. I don't know where I'm going next with this one.
Go wherever you want, man.
I had a track and I lost my track. But at the end of the day, I would say I'm doing what I want to do.
Yeah, I think you're doing exactly the things you like and something that's important to you, and you took a different route, and it's based off of events that you didn't foresee happening.
No.
Right? Because...
And I still think about that whole experience.
As almost a turning point, a tide turn?
It was
what do you think?
It was like a monumental moment in my life, because I still remember. I remember all the phone calls, being at school and talking to my mom, talking to my dad, talking to my coaches, and I just can't. It'll never leave my mind.
Right.
I'll always think about it, and I've accepted it, that I'll always be thinking about it. But at the same time, I'm happy with the decision I made.
Yeah, but I was about to ask you. You think you made the right choice?
I think either choice I made would have been the right choice, but yeah, I think I made the right choice.
Yeah, for now too, and that's the thing. That's what's so interesting about like part of life too, is it's now you made the right choice. Later, it could be something that you could say, "I wish I did it slightly differently," or if I just turned this right or turned this left, something else would have happened my way. But you'll never know it. It's all hindsight.
Absolutely, hindsight 2020.
Everything. Hindsight is 2020 in everything we do.
I have that now. I think about it now. I would have done things differently for sure, but it's the way the cards went.
It is exactly the way the cards went.
Way things went. We're here now, and but it's crazy that there's a pivotal. I'm gonna look back probably in 20 years, and that'll be the defining moment in my life. I think making that decision, being in that coach's room and making that final decision was probably the hardest thing I've had to do in my life
so far. Yeah.
So we'll see what else life has for me. But
listen, if that's the hardest thing you got going on, is telling your coach that you can't play baseball anymore at a great school and being injured in a situation, you're doing pretty good, man. You're doing pretty good. Because there's some people who made some real tough decisions at your age right now.
Yeah.
You're not going through that same type of turmoil, so you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I'm glad I can at least have some perspective, and I know it's not the worst thing that could have happened. I know it's not I don't have the worst situation on planet Earth. There's a lot more people with a lot worse things going on in their lives. So I just try and keep my mind open to that and be grateful for obviously what I have now. Doing this was always a bucket list.
Well, it was an aspiration, and now it became a reality. So, kind of getting into a little bit more of that when it comes to aspirations versus reality, and like how you start the concept of something you aspire to and why you aspire to it versus like the reality of doing it and how hard or easier you thought it would be.
Yeah. Aspiration versus reality. I was just thinking about, because I told you, I gave you that topic to talk about, and I'm glad we brought it up because I think you'll have some good points on this.
Right.
My ideas when I thought about it was based on a Joe Rogan podcast with Jared Cannonier. They were talking about how everybody that enters the UFC is obviously trying to be a UFC champion. You enter your sports league, wherever you are, MLB, you're trying to win championships. But the reality is that 99% of these people aren't going to be a UFC champion. Jared Cannonier is top 5 middleweight in the world. He's one of the best fighters on the planet. And he has that perception and understanding that his probability of being champion is very low, regardless that he's top 5 in the world. So I guess the question comes down to, at what point do you have to be realistic with where you're going? Because obviously we all want the world. We want everything, but majority of what you want is not going to happen.
No.
But how do you come to that idea and understanding that reality is reality, and 99% of the things that you want in life you're probably not going to get, and you have to deal with whatever that may be for not getting them?
I would say it's very difficult to talk to people about reality when they're in love with the process. And that process is really interesting depending on what you're doing, right? So like, take the baseball process, for example. If you're doing it right, or you're doing it at an advanced level, I would say, because everybody's right is different, right? My right was 6 days a week, getting up, eating a good breakfast, going to the weight room, throwing correctly with a purpose, going to get our sprints in, to then a conditioning in, to then you go to the trainer, to then do your ice bath, to then do your everything, really. I mean, do your arm care, to then do your stim, to then come back home, to then do a foam roll, so then make sure you get up at a decent time to do it the next day, eat a dinner that's good for you the night before, 6 days straight. Give yourself one day to have a life, at least a decent life. You want to have some sort of balance to a degree, but there is not much of a balance, and that's the imbalance that gets you what you want, right? Because it's unfortunate too, because you say it all the time, and I'm a victim of this as well, is being in a relationship when you're in college or you're in your craft without the identification of the imbalance. And if you can fall in love or get obsessed with what you're doing, that's where the imbalance will always be north toward what you're trying to accomplish, right? So like right now, my main focuses are the business, building other business, and making sure those businesses want to do business with us and build this thing to a 7, 8, or 9-figure company or 10-figure company if it's possible, right? But everything is possible with the type of work. Now, the reality is the amount of things that I'm going to have to do to get there, and the amount of people that you're going to have to meet, and the amount of information and delivering on those things that you want to do is going to have to align perfectly almost. But if you're in love with that process, it's easier for you to think there's no way somebody's going to teach me my reality. Like my reality won't come that quickly. Does that make sense?
So the end game is in the process.
It has to be. It has to be. And that's all of what I've learned so far, at least from successful people, is the process is everything you need, like, to keep you going. And you'll never kind of be finished with the process. And that's why there's like that term of like a workaholic almost, of people who are just in it and they love it. They're so locked into, how can I keep doing this? Because then once things end, because things do end, like time ends, a podcast ends, your information with somebody or the feeling you get, the relationship you get ends, but you're interested in that process of how you felt when you were going through that process. And that's what ignites you as a person. Like, that's what keeps you getting out of bed. Yeah. And if you're doing it for those reasons, you're going to love what you do. And you're going to love the situations you get into. And you're going to love the feelings, bad and good. Or you're going to embrace them, at least. At the very minimum, you're going to embrace them. Right. And that's where aspirations are interesting, because it's really thoughts, right? Aspirations are thoughts that you turn into something to then turn it into the reality, right? So like, the reality is you want to do a podcast. Now we're here, right? So then it's like, now what, right? Yes. You ask yourself, what's now what?
Be the best podcaster.
You be the best podcaster by doing what?
Learning the ins and outs.
You learn the ins and outs.
Get better at communicating.
You keep talking.
That's the number one reason I wanted to start a podcast, is because up until this point in my life, I've been a terrible communicator. Sure. I'm terrible at talking to people. I was sitting in the car in the parking lot just before this. David Goggins said the same thing on the Joe Rogan podcast, but right. I literally have to get myself amped up to be able to sit here right now and talk to you. And I can't do. I've never been able to do it. And I'm sitting in my chair right now, like, fidgeting because my anxiety's through the roof.
Yeah, and you'll improve on that.
I have to do it.
Yeah, you'll improve at it.
I really understand that communication is probably the number one most important thing for building relationships, as you talked about earlier. Right. And relationships are everything. And yeah, so that's why that was my number one goal for podcasting and why I wanted to do it. But I kind of took you off your track.
No, it's good, because it's a discomfort, right? It's a discomfort. There's so much discomfort in the process too. It's like the lack of comfort that you do not have in doing something that is something that you've been wanting to do, right? It's like, and that's part of the human experience, is jumping into stuff that you're uncomfortable with, right? Because And I've heard it from actually Lex Friedman, who I love. He said anything that he's uncomfortable with, he dives right into. And like, that's what I aspire to be. And that aspiration needs to be that I just continue to do things that I'm uncomfortable with. And so once you do it, you start to fall in love with that issue or that situation or that thing that always kind of gets you slightly out of sorts. Or maybe it's a person you don't like to talk to, but you talk to them anyway. Or a situation you don't like to face head on, and now you get good at that. And now you've just broken down another level in your lifestyle. So, you know, it's interesting in that all the things that you kind of want are always usually in front of you. Right?
Always.
They're always usually in front.
Like, I didn't know if I would ever take an MMA fight. I didn't know if I would have the guts to do it. Mm-hmm. And then 2 days prior to an event, I get asked, do you want to fight? And I said, no. I said no at first. And then I was like, well, this is why I'm in this game, so let's do it.
Right.
I mean, I got in the cage, and truth be told, I'm more uncomfortable doing a podcast than I was getting in that cage in front of 2,000 people, just to preface. But that was a very uncomfortable decision that had to be made, and I'm glad I made it because I think back on that experience, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything.
100%. And like, if you can get yourself to keep breaking down walls like that, that's where you take yourself to the next level. Absolutely. And you can do things that other people aren't. You can do things that are going to be the difference maker between you living a life and not, right? So, I just had a question going back to the process. Do you treat what you do on a daily basis as a job? Because there's this whole stigma, or whatever you want to call it nowadays, of if you love what you do, it's not a job. Mm-hmm. But in my experience, at least in my life throughout high school, waking up at 4:30 to go to the gym, I had to treat it. Am I muted right now? What happened? I don't hear myself. Oh, we're back. Okay. We're back?
Yeah, I'd lost my headphones for a second. I thought I went out. But waking up, I had to treat that process like a job. Right. Because if I didn't, I would have skipped it. I find that doing things that I enjoy, it's a lot easier. I don't know if this is just a me thing, but it's a lot easier to put off things that like I enjoy because I know it'll be there the next day, rather than treat it like a job and get it done today. Right. So do you treat what you do as a job on a daily basis?
Sometimes. I would say 20 to 30% of the time. And only because there are, I would say 20% of the time, sometimes 30, it feels like a job. And that's only because of the small parts of the job or the career that you don't love. And that's part of pretty much anybody's job. I think if you can get yourself into a good enough percentage of how much you like something, you're going to fall in love with the other stuff that you don't love. So like, if I can go into work saying 80% of the time I love what I do, and the other 20% I got to figure out over the course of 40 years, if I can break down even half a percentage of something, then I could probably get this thing down to up to like 95%. Because there's always stuff in any job or any career that you do that is not going to be glamorous. Like, I wish athletes or managers or players or brands saw what we do on the back end. Like, it's not that pretty, it's not that fun in certain areas, but you live it, right? And anything that you try to do well, you got to live all of it. You got to fall in love with everything of that process. And the process of that sometimes stinks. Like, it sucks some days, but like, you're not going to beat what we get to do. Like, in my opinion, like, you're not going to beat what I get to do where, we get to have our own office. We get to go wherever we decide we want to go, meet with the athletes that we want to meet with, work with some unbelievable athletes that we get to work with because we decided that, and they decided to work with us because of the synergies made sense. Like, and we all have the same values of what we're trying to accomplish here, which is, breaking barriers and whatever the things we're trying to accomplish is. And, you don't get to do that, people, you have to earn that. And that earning that is like, it's a privilege in itself. So you got to go through a lot of jobs to be able to say that I got the thing that I love more often than everything else. So like, and that's just part of work, right? Like, I don't think there's any perfect job, but I think you can get something close. I think you can get something very close, and it just comes with the territory, right? It's like you do a podcast. If you want one that's 100 million viewers a week, with 5 million downloads a week, and it's a 3-hour podcast where you get some of the best guests in the world, which I think you can get to.
That's where Puncher's chance is going.
It will get there. It will absolutely get there. The studio's going to get bigger, all the things that we want. But who's editing that podcast? Who's buying it? Where are we putting it? Where's the staff? And that's the stuff that like the back end people don't get enough credit for, doing the things that are the most important to like making anybody like us look good. And so, and you got to learn that side of it as well. And so learning that is, I don't know how to edit podcasts by myself, but with a team, I know how to edit it, and I got to learn how to edit it by myself in the pinch that I need to learn, so it's, yes, those are the job things, but I would say there are points where you will feel like you're working, but most of the time you get to do something that's, a privilege, and you love it, and you care for all of it, and it's nothing else you'd rather do. There's not many things that I would rather do than what I'm doing now. So it's definitely a privilege to do it. It doesn't feel like a job, not all the time, at least. I would say 80%. Yeah.
That's the goal, I guess.
It is. You try. You want to try and get into something that, and people do it. People want to try and get themselves into positions that they want to be into, but quite frankly, is that not everybody has the work ethic, the intensity, the passion, and also they don't have necessarily the means to be able to do it too. So
I think that's one of the biggest issues. Most people don't have the means,
and you don't want it to stop you, because there's opportunities to get it through, whether it's a bank, a friend, somebody who believes in you, and you need people to believe in you as well, right? We can't do this without somebody believing in us, wanting to do this and doing this at a level that's like, okay, I think they can get here, and even if they don't, they can create a cult following, right? And that's something that we're aspiring to right now, and so that's why we're doing this. That's why we're going to talk every week. That's why we're going to say our opinion and give people what they want, whoever those people are right now.
Yeah.
Right? So and that's where the grind is, right? Yeah. And that's where the grind is.
It's easy to have a successful podcast when you have the most influential and popular people in the world to have on as guests. But
100%.
This is the real grind, is when you don't have guests.
Oh, man.
You're working from zero.
It's when you're, trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat, every single week.
And I can't wait years down the road when we're still doing this, because I don't plan on stopping. But when we're still doing this, to look at episodes 1 and 2 and be like, man, those were trash.
Where it's going to be, episode 202, and all of a sudden you're going to be like, wow, look at the studio, look at the people, look at the friends, look at the connections we've made, look at the conversations we're having, right? And it's going to be a growth, and that's what you want. You want the growth, and it has to be organic, and it has to feel that way, and you got to be passionate about it. You got to love it all, and
that's what fires me up about this.
Yeah, I think being fired up and being passionate about something is kind of the only way you do stuff. I mean, I think, and that's what's so interesting about people with just regular jobs to me, which, again, people have to do exactly what they have to do to succeed. People have to do what they have to do to live, and you do what you can to survive. So to everybody with a regular job, we love you, we care about you, and I think that those are the people that are obviously moving the country around, doing what has to happen. But it's remarkable that people who've, in today's society, who've got ideas with capital to use from their regular job, that they could go and do something, inspirational, or do something fun or creative. I think it's just fascinating that they're not doing it.
I think a large part of that has to do with social media nowadays. Everybody's pretty afraid to do it.
Right.
I don't think people want the negativity or the backlash or the criticism. A lot of people don't like taking criticism. And I think that's a big issue as to why people don't go for things, especially if they have the means to do it and go for it. Why not?
It's the truth. I mean, why not go and try and, like we talk about too, creating that risk, going to do something that most people aren't doing, or do something that is going to at least fill your cup, right? Like do something that's going to fill your cup. And that's like kind of interesting about, speaking of that term, I actually had a friend who went through a situation with, you know, a girl that he was with, and I told him a lot. And, you know, he even explained a little bit of it too. But, you know, basically the moral of his story was that he wasn't getting his cup filled, right? And that's like kind of where being blinded by love comes in. Like, it was such an interesting conversation over the past couple months because he's been dealing with it for a while now. And, like, yeah, you can be blinded by something that you want to be in. And you can decide that it's good for you, or you can decide that it's not. But most of the time we're always wanting something that we love, even if it doesn't love us back.
Yeah, there's a lot I had in mind to bring up, but based on what you said, we see these videos on Instagram and these news stories of, like, at least on the relationship side,
right,
of unfortunately domestic abuse and all this, like the most extreme of the extreme, and you sit and wonder, how did they get there? How did we get to such a bad point in this whole thing when it probably started off all fine and dandy and phenomenal?
Right.
But I think it's easy to put in the rearview mirror the bad things about someone, especially 100%. If you're in love with them. It's a lot easier, and I'm sure that's how it started. And it's just, you know, something that is almost inevitable for some people because they get so in depth with that person, and they fall so hard in love with that person. And people on the outside are looking like, how are you still with them?
Right.
And it turns into this toxic thing. And I saw it firsthand with one of my friends. He was in a pretty bumpy relationship. He would say the same thing, so I'm not really worried about saying it. And he's still with them. And I had to bring up the question, why? Like, what are they doing that's so good that's keeping you there, when just me on the outside who doesn't know the full story, it looks terrible for you. Like, I'm begging you to get out of there, but you just can't. And that's where I question, why can't you?
For sure. And I think, oh man, it's so loaded.
It's so loaded.
It's such a loaded thing when you think about people doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And I've been in it, right? I've been in a situation where I was in a relationship and I was sleepwalking and I was not there. And you do it because it's consistent. You do it because it's kind of what you know for that particular time. And then think about starting over or starting a new transition into something. It's difficult, and people aren't ready for that all the time. So that's what I would say to a person like that, is where when you're going through those types of things, you have to be self-aware. And that self-awareness has to be like, you have to always be living in that present day of how you feel about something, and you have to trust what you're feeling. Because there's a lot of times where I didn't trust it. There's a lot of times where I said to myself, like, there's no way. Like, yeah, it sucks right now, but like, it'll get better, right? It's got to get better with this person. We've been together for so long. It's supposed to be better, and it's not. And you just keep telling yourself it's got to be. And that's where relationships are tough, because you want things to kind of change naturally without saying anything. If you can get away with it, if you can get away without saying anything, you will. And so that's a tough aspect of building a relationship and being with someone who at least you can be honest with and compatible. And so I hope your friend's better. I hope your friend gets okay.
Oh, he's all right. He's fine. You know, he just went through some things, and he talked to me about it because we're pretty good friends. And I like listening and like trying to help people.
As you should, yeah.
And yeah, it was just something. It was crazy for me to watch this whole thing happen and be like, you just can't be there anymore. You have to get out of this situation.
Right.
And he's sticking with it.
How about you? Have you been in any type of these situations before?
It was, I can't, not to the extent that I saw him. This whole summer, got pretty close, but she was great. Like, she was phenomenal, great person. But I saw myself, I'm like, everything was great, so I wasn't worried about it. But if it started going south, I noticed that I was pretty vulnerable to being able to rear view mirror the bad things and look past it. So I felt like if it went further down the road, which it didn't, things didn't come to fruition, whatever it may be. Still on great terms. She's a great person. But I felt as if things went further down the road and things started taking a turn, I would have been in that same situation that he's in right now.
Sure.
And I wouldn't have noticed it. So maybe if I got that experience, I would understand what he's looking at. But I just, right now, I can't, because luckily I haven't been in that situation.
Right.
But it's interesting. It's interesting to look from an outside perspective.
Rear view mirror the bad things too. Yeah, that's interesting too. Like, I think I struggle with that even in a good relationship too. Like, because your brain doesn't want to hear the bad stuff from people. And I actually hate it. I hate it. It goes back to that same adage of what I don't know doesn't hurt me. So I don't like to hear that stuff. And I don't like to hear things that particularly weren't your best self. Or maybe it was your best self, and now I have to hear it, right? So, like, I hate hearing about exes. I hate hearing about people that were not a part of my life when you were there, and vice versa. And, like, that part to me feels like you still may be thinking about those times, and I don't want to think about it. I'm trying to move forward, and that future aspect of it is where men typically have that ability to look forward more often as opposed to staying in the moment. And that's where we usually have to either get brought back to life, or we have to somebody puts the brakes on us. Right, as a man, we usually get those brakes put on us pretty quickly, and that's what makes it a little difficult to look at. We rarely look at things as challenges because of that. Like, oh, I could do this.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're going to do it. It's going to take us a year, but we're going to get it done. And anything we do, we're going to build a podcast. We're going to build a office. We're going to go and put together this app or whatever it may be. And all those things are like, yeah, but it's going to take some time.
Everything looks like a mountain in the beginning.
Everything looks like a mountain in the beginning. And that mountain I'm still egotistically trying to climb in. No, I don't care that you had a past, even though everybody has one. And I don't want to hear about your things that you went through before me. And I'm not interested in that. But yeah, it's something that you have to continue to try and strive to get over, because, like, that's not the fight you're trying to win. That's not here. You're not worried. You shouldn't be worried about that to the degree in which you're worried about it. And that's a part of the ego.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what you said. You don't want to hear about it. I don't know. I think maybe if it's something that happened to you in which I do it, or there's something I can do to make sure that you don't go back to that thought, or do something to make sure that doesn't happen and you don't think about it, because there's something that's happened. Some things happen and it brings you back to, like, a past event, which is inevitable in life.
Absolutely.
But if there's something that I can do to help promote that not happening, then I'm all ears. I'll listen to you.
Right.
But bringing up things just because, and, like, harping on your past, which I really don't care about. Right.
No, I don't.
That's where I agree with you. Is I don't care unless I can do something to help you improve. Then I really don't care.
And that's bringing added value, and, like, that's part of the reason why you get with somebody, or you get yourself into a relationship, because that person will bring added value to your life, not because you can both do things together. It's like they're bringing added value to yours, you're bringing added value to theirs, and now we can work together in unison because there's two mutual beneficial things happening, right? And so that's where relationships are tough, because I think that one person is typically getting what they want, and the other person's sacrificing a little bit more than they thought they'd be sacrificing, but then that's when they get blind. And that blinded by love thing is real, man. It's real.
It is. And yeah, it's something to think about, and it's something I was thinking about. So I'm interested to see what happens in the future. If I get blindsided by this and have an experience to talk about. But yeah, I don't have anything like that's personally happened.
And it's good. You don't want those things to keep you up at night, but we've all got something that's keeping us up at night. So What do you think yours is?
That was a great transition because I forgot about that. I wanted to bring that up, and I forgot about that. But what keeps me up at night? This is a tough question, because there's a lot of different routes to go, right? Me personally, it's trying to comprehend the world. If I'm being honest, it's trying to comprehend what is going on, what is the meaning of everything, right? And everybody has that idea of like, what is life? What is the meaning of life?
You can't go too deep into it because that's when you'll want to kill yourself.
Well, yeah, I mean, never
thinking
went
about
that deep.
thinking about how deep the world is. It's literally the interstellar thoughts that you just can't keep putting. Once you get to that point, especially your age, because and that's where you guys at your age are so weird now.
We
are. We didn't think about stuff like that. I did not think about the world and what it was at 20. I think about it now, but I really thought about women. I thought about how my girlfriend cheated on me and how I didn't like it, and I thought about how I'm going to get better at baseball and how I'm going to get on my revenge tour. That was literally all it was.
That's probably the vast majority. I think I fall into the category of a nerd, and I'll own it. I think I'm a nerd, which is fine. I'm fine being the nerd, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I have a strong passion for trying to comprehend things, and when I can't comprehend it, it really irritates me, and it makes me dive further into it. So I really went down a rabbit hole, and it doesn't help the fact that I'm already into the physics world and the whole side of physics and the Big Bang theory and all of that nonsense. I know you're into the religion and all of that. I don't know how deep you are into it. We had a conversation and you brought it up, which I'm all for. I can't say I'm the most religious. I'll put that out there. I do believe there is something, absolutely. But then I dove hard into the physics world and the people that don't believe and they believe it's a Big Bang or whatever. I'm 50-50 split. I can't decide.
I want people to believe. I am very Christian, and it is something in my family, and I definitely love, and we believe in Jesus Christ and our Savior and what He's done for us. However, I want people to. I say this to my brother all the time. I want people to believe in what they believe in and go all in. I hate people who can't fully exist the way they want to exist. And I'm able to be in the middle on so many different things, which I enjoy. But the things that I truly care about, I'm so passionate about that I actually want to hear your opinion about something I'm opposite on. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
I'd rather you be, hey, if I'm going to go into the physics route of what happened and how we got here as human beings, then just lean into it. Be that person as opposed to and lean into it in the way that you're still trying to find out all the information, but you still believe that this is what it is. And it doesn't mean you're not open to it if you're leaning in.
Yeah.
Because I'm open to everything. But I'm still such a Christian that I do believe that at the very least, there's a higher power. There's somebody who runs this thing,
That's probably the extent of my belief. I really want to believe and be a firm believer and lean that way. But I don't know. There's just something in me or something that tells me or something that I read or watch that just... it's hard for me, and
right.
I'm all open to being pulled one direction or another, but at the moment I can't. I'm so mixed on this topic that I cannot, for the life of me, find something to lean towards. And I'm so 50-50 split, and you're gonna hate me for that. But
I think that you're still learning information, so you have a little bit of time to you always have. I mean, everybody has time to continue to find out what they want or what they don't want, or because you're not set in your ways just yet, which is good. And neither am I. I don't think I'll ever be set in my ways until I have kids where I got to teach them something. Eventually I got to let people know what I believe in that I actually care about, because everybody else, who cares?
They're going to
believe what you want, and they're going to believe what they want. So, you got to kind of get into the position of what am I going to be able to tell to an offspring? What am I going to be able to pass down in the lineage? And people going to, because it decides a lot about how you exist, and which is unfortunate, but it does. And it's just a part of our being now, like religion and science and the things that we believe, the things that we want our people to know, and how we want them to perceive where you're going. Right? Like, where do you go after this?
Yeah, exactly.
And now that can alter how a person looks at other people, and that's unfortunate. It doesn't have to. It just decides what people believe in from a scientific perspective, because at the end of the day, we're all here now. So, like, what are we going to do?
What are we doing?
Yeah. Whether you believe in this, whether I believe in that, it don't matter. We're still in the same place. So,
yeah. And we all might not be going to the same place, but you know, that's what you believe in and what's your idea of what is now.
Right.
And that's the other thing that keeps me awake at night. I hate to say it. I have the biggest fear of death. The biggest fear of death. I'm scared to death of dying, which I hate.
Don't ever put into the universe.
I hate to say it, but I really am. And that keeps me up at night. But, you know, that's my brain is going crazy.
I think that that's where mortality is a real thing to feel, right? That, and understanding it will help you live a certain way, will help you do things a certain way, treat people a certain way. I think that that's really the biggest thing you'll get from it. It's like, all right, what am I here to do? And that's where, like, being on top at a certain time, and also understanding your worth and value to others. Like, I ain't gonna be here that long. Yeah. So theoretically, and like realistically, in the grand scheme of how long life has been around, like if you got a smooth 90,
that's long.
That's a long time. Like, that's a long time.
It's a long time. It feels like it, but in reality, it's not a long time.
It's not. So you just hope you can kind of get there. Yeah. And so getting there is half the battle. And so it's interesting though.
Those are the things that keep me up. And you know, I don't know if other people can relate, but
I think people will relate.
I'm curious what keeps you awake at night. I don't know if it goes that route. I'm curious what route you go. Curious which way you go.
What keeps me awake? What keeps me awake is hoping that the things you do. Well, there's a lot of things that keep me up at night. The things that you do for people, they also recognize the way you did it and why you did it, and the respect in that thing. Because I'm a pretty selfless guy. Like, I'm selfish when I get to be selfish for myself, but overall, I want to see people succeed. I want to see people get what they want. I want to see people have fun. I want to see people engage in the things that they want to engage in. I want to see people live the way that we all kind of sought out to be living in that particular moment. So like when we go out on a night out, or I pay for somebody to go, and they are someone who may not have the money, but maybe they're a little selfish in their own way, and they don't even realize what they're getting. They don't realize the time that they're getting. That time could be taking them out of something that they were dealing with. And it's never usually the money that you care about. It's the respect. It's the understanding, right? Because as long as you have respect, you know, money's money, right? It doesn't matter. It's more about do you understand why it's happening? Do you understand why we're doing this? Do you understand why you need to have respect for certain things? And you just hope that you made people feel the way they were supposed to, that you wanted them to feel, and that they recognize that you made them feel that way.
Is there something that you can do, or an event that might happen that'll make you satisfied and not keep you up at night? Like, is there something that someone has to show you?
Yeah, you can get closure in that. You can get somebody, you can be around people that will always have that respect and say thank you and please, and you know, I really appreciate what you did. I appreciate what you do and how you treat others and what you do for other people. And you're not going to get it all the time, because there's a lot of things that are thankless out here. Like, there's a lot of things you'll do that are just, you do them because you wanted to. And that's part of being a good human being. You know, that's like almost like 70% of it, in my opinion. Like, sometimes you just got to be good people just to be good people. And you can't worry about the other stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a lot of other stuff.
It is. It's so many other stuff. It's more other stuff than not. And so you just hope that you can kind of get to people in that way of, hey, I am in love with the process of seeing people grow and having fun doing it. And you just hope that they respect you along the way.
Yeah, that's the goal of mine, which is going down the martial arts path. So I understand very heavily what you're saying and where you're coming from, because I have that same thought. It doesn't keep me awake at night, I guess, because I have the confidence that I'm going to deliver and get to the end goal, that I want to help people and do the things I want for other people. So it doesn't keep me up at night per se, but it's definitely a thought.
Right.
So
right.
But that's the confidence, I guess, in myself of knowing that I can get there.
It is. Well, we got a puncher's chance, man.
Everybody's got a puncher's chance.
Everybody's got a puncher's chance to get there. So, but this has been good, man.
This was a fun one.
This was a fun one.
Got deep on this one, and I'm here for it.
And we will continue to get deep. I think this is the type of stuff that I think we enjoy, and the stuff that we like to talk about and get into. So
it makes me uncomfortable.
It is. But this is the first edition and the newest edition and the next edition of A Puncher's Chance.
This is all we got.